Okay, welcome to the Week 2 lecture, Capella University. My name is Rick Fenwick. This week I want to talk about individual differences in testing. Practitioners of IO psychology rely on standardized tests. They're used in selection and placement. Certainly training and development is a big area of use, and program evaluation. In other words, when we're asked to design and implement programs, we're often asked to demonstrate the effectiveness of the program as well, and standardized tests are really useful in doing that. So I think it's important that regardless of your focus of on the industrial side or the organizational side of IO Psych, it's really important that you develop a competency in standardized tests. This week in the classroom, we'll be focusing on case study 3.1, is page 102 of the Landy and Conte text. And in this particular case, there's a problem with gender bias in physical testing for firefighters, and this is not uncommon. Most firefighting departments conduct physical tests, and so it's important to the organization, and not only that to the organization, but to candidates, that these tests be fair. So we'll be talking about how an IO psychologist could solve this problem of gender bias in the physical testing in that case study. I want to talk for a minute about the Rishi versus De Stefano case. And in this particular case, really illustrates the importance of the IO psychologist's work in with standardized tests and that are used in selection. In this particular case, it was in New Haven, Connecticut, and it was a test for screening firefighters for promotion within the city. And they implemented this test so that firefighters of all ethnic and gender groups, they personally studied for this test and in order to work and qualify for promotion. In hindsight, the tests, it turned out to be that the tests seemed to be discriminatory against African Americans, and so the African American employees were coming together to file a lawsuit against the city. So the city, in response to this, decided to withdraw the test altogether. To avoid the discrimination lawsuit, and a lawsuit was filed by Caucasians and Hispanics saying it would be discriminatory to withdraw the test because they had invested personal time preparing, and now they would be denied the scores in consideration for promotion. So the point that I want to make is that the city was liable and was going to be sued no matter what they did. And so it really illustrated the importance of getting it right the first time, where it was free of bias and did not discriminate against any ethnic groups or genders. Personality tests, I think they're very effective in development. Throughout my career, I've used them in development, especially in team building. Found them to be useful, and not only that, the employees seem to enjoy it. They can create problems in selection, and it reminds me, of a story. I once I attended a conference workshop with Otto Krager, who was well known in the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. He was nationally known, and he told a story where they had an opening in their company, and so the leaders got together and had calculated which Myers-Briggs type they thought would be ideal to fill this opening in. And of course, they were all experts in the Myers-Briggs, so it was pretty obvious to them what types all these people were who were interviewing. And so anyway, of the people who were qualified, they selected the type that they had predetermined would be the best fit. And he said that this person turned out to be completely different than what they expected for that type. And not only that, the person they were not a good fit for the job. They didn't like the job, and eventually they quit the organization. He said following that, they always in interviewing and screening candidates for hire, they always picked the most qualified candidate regardless of their personality. And then after they were hired, then they used the Myers-Briggs to help blend the person in so that they become a good fit with their coworkers. And this seemed to be the best strategy. And so I kind of I agree with Otto Krager's story that it seems to me that personality is too complicated to be used in selection, where it's a good predictor. Standardized tests are often used in program evaluation. I know there was a time I've talked earlier about, but there was a time I was asked to evaluate a program at different points in time on the calendar. It was implementation of teams in a manufacturing organization. The concern of the organization, because they had lots of measures in place that they could check, but what they didn't have in place was anything for employee satisfaction. And so their concern was what effect would changing the way they manage the system and operate the system have on employee satisfaction. So we researched standardized tests that might be used, and we selected the job descriptive index, which had good reliability and validity because we knew we would be comparing scores over time. And not only that, it's an economical test to implement it. It was not expensive to use. And it was effective, and it satisfied the leader's interest in doing that. Last of all, I'd like to talk a little bit about the Burroughs Mental Measurement Yearbook. If you go into the library and click where they list all the databases, you'll see Mental Measurement Yearbook is a database that you can use, and it's an excellent database. It lists standardized tests. It will give a description of the psychological constructs they measure. It'll list the reliability, validity, the publisher, how much it costs. I mean, it's very useful. And not only that, it's in the library, it's searchable using keywords. So, say for example, you could type in satisfaction or coaching or leadership, and it'll bring up all the tests in the database that apply to those keywords. And I find this to be a really exciting resource and useful resource. So I've used it a lot. I would recommend you look this resource up and play around with it and do some keyword searches and see the types of tests that are available. And as you do that, I would also encourage you to develop a competency in standardized tests. I mean, if you think about it, they're often used in research, so it's, when you read an article, you want to be able to critically evaluate the standardized tests and the measurements reported in the article. So I think regardless of whether you focus on industrial or organizational psychology, standardized tests are an important competency to develop. Once again, I want to reference our text, 4th edition of the Lande and Conte, an excellent text. Also, you'll notice in the transcript posted in the course room that I'll have a reference for the Risi versus Di Stefano court case. Thank you.